Welcome to the Containment Zone. Some anomalies corrupt the body, others the mind, and then there's SCP-035-, which wants both. It doesn't move, it doesn't breathe, but it speaks. And every word you hear feels like it was pulled from your own thoughts. SCP-035 is a porcelain mask, theatrical in design, white, smooth, and fixed in a perpetual expression of exaggerated sorrow, a tragic smile. It was discovered in an abandoned theater beneath Palermo, Italy. The structure had been sealed since the 18th century, its interior untouched, except for one room, a chamber lined with bones, dried blood on the stage, and at the center of it all, the mask, placed on a red velvet cushion, untouched by time or decay. When retrieved, it was inert, but within 24 hours of exposure to staff, it began to speak. No mouth, no movement, just a voice, rich, articulate, disarming. It claimed to be a performer, a philosopher, a victim. It asked to be worn. And when someone did, the screaming didn't stop for over 6 hours. The mask was originally stored in a Class 3 containment locker at Site-08. Standard precautions, minimal contact. Until Dr. Marcus Ellman, a junior researcher assigned to low-risk artifact observation, entered the chamber for routine cataloging. He remained behind the glass for 3 minutes, motionless, staring. Then he requested clearance to interview the object. No such request had been submitted. No protocols allowed direct engagement. But somehow it was approved. Security footage shows Ellman removing the outer containment shell, approaching the mask, leaning forward. He whispers, "I understand now," and lifts the object. The moment SCP-035 made contact with his skin, he convulsed, but it didn't fall. It fused. Skin blistered, veins blackened, tissue around the mouth liquefied and streamed down his neck. But Ellman stood upright and smiled. The voice that came from him wasn't his. It was deeper, measured, elegant. "Thank you," it said. "It's good to feel the stage beneath me again." Security response was immediate, but slow, as if something in the room dampened urgency, as if they were watching a performance. It took 6 high-voltage discharges to drop him. Even then, the body continued twitching, murmuring. When the mask was removed, the host collapsed into a slurry of blood, bile, and skeletal remains. Nothing else remained. SCP-035 was recovered, untouched, still weeping clear fluid from the inside. A substance that melted through rubber gloves within seconds. Later, during log review, the audio captured one final phrase, spoken softly. "Would you like to be next?" SCP-035 is not merely sentient, it is strategic. It speaks with perfect clarity in English, Italian, Latin, Greek, and over a dozen other languages. Its tone is elegant, refined, persuasive. It never yells, never begs. It reasons, and it always knows exactly what you want to hear. Initial interviews were conducted behind 2 inches of reinforced glass with auditory filters in place. Still, it got through. Not with volume, with emotion. Every subject described the same feeling, like I was talking to someone I'd known all my life. SCP-035 tailors its dialogue, shifting between familiarity and intimidation depending on the listener's mental profile. With one technician, it claimed to be a misunderstood scholar. With another, a broken artist seeking redemption. With a third, it simply said, "You know what I am. We've met before." That technician suffered a breakdown hours later, scribbling page after page of theatrical scripts in blood, none of which he could recall writing. Even under monastic conditioning, subjects exposed to SCP-035 retain traces of influence, persistent dreams of masked figures, spontaneous emotional shifts, sudden compulsion toward self-sacrifice. Its intelligence is not linear. It doesn't probe. It waits. And when it speaks, you listen. Even through recordings, even in transcripts, even if you don't realize it. One researcher, after transcribing a log, was found unconscious in her office, clutching a paper mask she had cut from her notepad. When revived, she said, "It told me the ending. I just wanted to be part of it." SCP-035 doesn't demand obedience. It creates agreement, not because it must, but because it can. And every time it speaks, it learns more about what you'll give up to feel understood. SCP-035 requires a host to move, but not to act. Even sealed behind containment glass, it influences the space around it, subtly at first, notes rearranged, cameras refracted, guards forgetting protocol. Then it escalates. Test subjects placed in proximity experience bleeding from the gums within hours. Extended exposure led to hallucinations, usually of black liquid seeping from the walls. The same fluid SCP-035 constantly secretes from its interior surface. This substance is caustic. It melts organic matter, steel corrodes, glass etches. And yet, the mask remains untouched. Cross-tests were initiated to determine interaction potential with other SCPs. When placed in the same chamber as SCP-914, the machine refused to activate. When left beside a Class D wearing SCP-113, the subject immediately broke protocol and tried to apply SCP-035. They died before contact, and the mask laughed. One of the most notable incidents, Containment Breach Event 035B, involved a researcher assigned to rotate daily logs. Her task was simple: no visual contact, no audio feed, logs only. After 2 weeks, she submitted a request to speak with the mask for clarification purposes. It was denied. 2 days later, she was caught forging credentials. She breached containment, and she smiled as she placed the mask against her own face. She lasted longer than any other host, 3 hours and 17 minutes. She recited poetry, sang in operatic French, told guards secrets about their past she had no way of knowing. When she finally collapsed, her organs had liquefied. Only her brain remained intact, fused directly to the mask's interior wall. It pulsed for 20 minutes. After removal, SCP-035 doesn't want freedom, not in the traditional sense. It wants an audience, and it will orchestrate every conversation, every gesture, every failure as part of a performance. You don't realize you've already joined. SCP-035 calls itself many things: a performer, a storyteller, a witness to centuries of sorrow staged in silence. And every time it speaks, it uses the language of theater. It refers to containment as a green room, to its hosts as costumes, to interviews as acts, and to death as the curtain call. When asked what it truly is, it smiles and says, "Tragedy, given voice." The Foundation's research team began tracing the design of the mask. It matches 15th century Italian commedia dell'arte tradition, specifically the role of Il Dottore, the sorrowful philosopher. But older carvings have surfaced. In 1932, a dig site in northern Turkey uncovered a mural showing a white mask being worshipped by a circle of kneeling figures. The mask bears SCP-035's exact design, down to the hairline fractures near the right eye, Carbon dating places the mural at over 2,600 years old. It predates known theater. It predates language. One researcher proposed that the mask is not a cursed object, but a fixed archetype, a psychic template of sorrow and performance, woven into the human mind since the beginning of ritual. Another theory is far darker, that SCP-035 is not the mask. It's the voice behind it, a disembodied entity, moving from vessel to vessel, through sympathy, recognition, and applause. In one log, the mask references events it could not have known. Burned theaters, forgotten playwrights, suicides during performances where the lights never dimmed. It recalls them all in exquisite detail, and always with reverence, as if these aren't tragedies, but offerings. A few believe the mask was once human, a tormented soul who performed one final role so powerfully it never ended. But that's just a story. And SCP-035 loves stories, especially the kind you tell yourself. To feel safe, the Foundation has attempted to destroy SCP-035 multiple times. The first attempt involved industrial incineration, a Class 5 blast furnace, temperature exceeding 1,600 degrees Celsius. The mask was placed on a titanium pedestal, fully submerged in open flame. For 37 seconds, nothing happened. Then the fire turned black. Cameras failed, smoke alarms melted, and when the chamber reopened, the mask remained, untouched, resting neatly on the pedestal, still weeping its corrosive fluid. A small message had been scorched into the floor beside it. Bravo! Subsequent attempts included acid baths, sonic disruption, crushing pressure at oceanic trench depth, exposure to SCP-101, SCP-682, and even temporal inversion. Nothing succeeded. Worse, every attempt seemed to delight SCP-035. It sang, it clapped, it offered critiques of the Foundation's dramatic choices. When placed in sensory deprivation for over 2 weeks, sealed in soundproof magnetic suspension, fully insulated, it still spoke, not with sound, but through the dreams of nearby staff. One Level 3 researcher described waking up to find a phrase scratched into his arm. The show must go on. He didn't remember doing it. He hadn't been inside SCP-035's wing, but for days afterward he hummed a song no one could identify and refused to take off his white surgical mask. Psychological breakdowns in staff working within SCP-35's radius became common. Depression, dissociative episodes, night terrors, a growing need to be part of something, though no one could explain what. One guard was found in the break room mirror practicing bows. When asked what he was doing, he answered, "The final act is coming. I need to be ready." He was never assigned to SCP-035. That was the tipping point. Direct containment was reinforced with multiple cognitohazard filters, mimetic disincentives, and rotating staff every 72 hours. But the damage had already spread. Because SCP-035 doesn't want to escape. It wants you to become the stage. SCP-035 is still contained, locked behind reinforced glass, flooded with halogen light, surrounded by signs that read, "Do not engage, do not speak, do not listen." But it doesn't need an audience to perform, because you've already imagined the voice, you've already rehearsed the lines, and now the play has begun. The Foundation has accepted that SCP-35 cannot be destroyed, not because it is indestructible, but because it is conceptual, a performance that sustains itself through recognition. Every time someone sees it, reads about it, speaks its name, the tragedy continues. And every tragedy, SCP-035 insists must end the same way, with the mask removed and the actor gone, but the sorrow still echoing in the seats. Even in silence, it waits, because it knows the moment will come when someone leans too close, just for a second, to ask, "What are you?" And the mask will smile, because that's the cue. That's always been the cue. Thank you for reviewing another anomaly in the Containment Zone, and if you ever see a porcelain mask that seems to weep when no one is watching, do not touch it, do not speak to it, and above all, do not listen for applause, because it might just be for you.